It's Thursday, December 6th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we take a deep dive into internet safety for tweens and teens and learn more about safety training at the Department of Public Works. First, let's start with some news you can use. The Cape housing market does not adequately meet the needs of our residents and workforce at varied incomes and life stages. What type of housing do you prefer? The town of Barnstable and the Cape Cod Commission will join together in a public meeting planning area workshop for the east end of Hyannis on December 10th at 5:30 p.m. in the second floor hearing room at Town Hall. The Commission and the town are looking at acceptable alternatives to traditional single-family detached housing for the east end of Hyannis. A visual preference survey is now available online to gauge local preferences at capecodcommission.org/survey. Learn more about this workshop and survey on an upcoming Barnstable Today. Protecting your kids online can seem overwhelming to most parents of tweens and teens. Certified digital forensics detective Kevin Connolly from the Barnstable Police Department has some gaming and social media tips to help parents navigate these sometimes confusing and treacherous digital waters. Teens and tweens are always looking for the next best video game out there or the next best app. With me today, Detective Kevin Connolly from the Barnstable Police Department. We're going to talk a little bit about internet safety and your kids. Detective, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's give folks a little background. You're an expert in some of this internet crime, cybercrime kind of stuff, right?
Well, I think it's a stretch to use expert when you talk about online because it's just so ever-changing. But
right.
I can say I've been working with digital evidence for over a decade now. I've had a tremendous amount of training through the state, through the federal law enforcement training center, different companies, all that the Barnstable Police Department has let me chase after and try to get on top of this before it becomes a problem. And it has turned into something that we've used for investigations in our town, and more importantly, instructing parents, teachers, and children how to be safe while dealing with anything online, which, as we all know, over the last 10 years has grown from, just watching a movie to playing a video game to people you shop online. Just the closing of Toys R Us in town, as devastating as it was for me to see Jeffrey the giraffe retire, it just goes to show that everything is online.
Right.
Right,
and let's just give a little history to digital forensics, 10 years. So the ability of looking at what happens online, I want to impress upon parents that children and themselves, they leave a digital footprint.
They do. We talk about that a lot with the second life, almost, is what it's called. I talk to a lot of parents about making sure they're a part of not just their children's life, but their digital life as well. And when we talk about parents that really don't participate in their child's digital life, they're missing a lot. And they can miss a lot of indicators of good things and bad things. And it can come back to haunt kids for job interviews, for internships, for schools. There's every single one of those things looks at your digital footprint and sees what type of person you are. And like I tell parents all the time, if your child came home from school and said, hey, I'm going to be playing a sport, that wouldn't end the conversation. It would be what sport? You'd go shopping, you'd get some cleats or a glove or a hockey stick. You'd go to practices, you'd go to games, you'd be a part of that. You should be doing the same exact thing with their social media, with their digital footprint. What websites are you on? What games are you playing? Sit down and play those games with them. The biggest thing that never changes in online safety is communication. You have to communicate with your kids, and that's a face-to-face communication, and it is the most important piece of keeping everybody safe and educating everybody. And that is the one piece that never changes, is communication.
Right. And that communication, when you're first starting out in this, you talk about jobs and internships, the digital life of children now starts usually around the age of 8 or 9 years old. So that
if not younger.
If not younger, right? You're getting the iPads out, you've got some apps. There was the weird Elmo doll that recorded everything it said.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a 4-year-old that doesn't know how to work an iPad and that doesn't know his parents' password to get into it.
Right.
That's if I forget my password, I go right to my kids. How do I get into this one? And they know.
Right.
You know, just like we used to fix the blinking light on the VCR, our kids have outgrown us technology-wise.
Right. So we're going to talk a little bit today about protecting your kids online.
Yes.
So let's start with the first, connection.
The first thing, so like I said, it's always communication. Connection is the biggest thing, is understanding how are our kids getting online. You go back a decade and it was the computer. It's put the computer in the family area, and that was how you monitored the internet. It was hardwired, there was no Wi-Fi everywhere. Understanding what type of devices are your children on and what applications or games are they doing on those devices. So you need to understand, Fortnite's the big one right now. We all know that right now.
Right.
You know, a year ago, it was Minecraft. And that is on phones, video game consoles, computers. You can do some of that stuff right through Comcast TVs now, smart TVs. So understanding how the kids are connected is step one. And communicating with them and figuring out, because I know when my kids will come over and they'll sit down and one's playing it on the computer, one's playing on their phone, and the other one's playing it on the Xbox, but they're all playing together. It's all integrated. And I love learning about that with them. And believe me, they hate having me as a dad because I'm all over the internet stuff. And they're like, it's not fair. You understand it. That's great. But I understand it too because I sit down and I play with them. I say, let's play. You can beat me up on Fortnite. I'm not good at it. I'm terrible. Terrible. But it gives you time with your children, and you're learning what they're doing. You're listening to what they're listening to. You're seeing who their friends are online. Big rule in my house, the friends online are friends they know in real life. They're not friends with, they have their cousins, they have their family members, and they have friends from their grades.
Okay.
I have a daughter who's a sophomore. She does not have seniors that are friends with her online. My 8-year-old does not have kids that are friends with my 15-year-old online. They are kids in the same grade, one grade up or down, and people they know in real life. There is no friending unknowns, because unknowns are truly unknowns.
Right.
So,
right. And that's the scary part, is that a lot of these games actually can connect you all over the world.
all over the world. Like I said, when I go on Fortnite, you know, if I was to go out and play with people from all around the world, I would be getting beat up by little kids in England. That's just how it is. I'm not good.
So learning, you connect and then you learn.
Learning, that just, it goes right into that communication. And it seems like dads really like me saying this, but you know, when the new Black Ops comes out, or when the new Fortnite update comes out, sit down and play. And that's how you learn, communicating with the kids. When there's social media apps are huge. But if you don't understand what your kids are on, the kids aren't on Facebook. They're not. They're on Instagram. They're on Snapchat. Snapchat's the big one right now. There's a lot of things you have to be aware of with that stuff. There's a lot of things that, you know, I'm a big proponent of. I don't want my kids friending me because I'm going to get the fake account. I'm not going to see their messages. I'm not going to see what they're getting. I pay for their cell phones. I get the passwords to their cell phones. I pay for the internet in my house. I get access to everything they have. And what it does is it sets in the back of their head that, well, I know Dad looks at my stuff all the time. I know Dad's going to log into my account because he has my passwords. He's the only one that has my passwords, me and their mom. It's that little voice in the back of the head that we had when we were kids. You know, am I about to do something stupid? If Mom or Dad finds out about this, is this not a smart decision? You have to do the same thing with their devices. You have to set that little voice in the back of the head that helps them make good decisions and not do anything that's going to put them in danger of screwing up something at school, screwing up something in their future, or them hurting someone else, because that is very easily done. Cyberbullying is a whole nother aspect of this world that kids don't have that castle to retreat to after school where they can sit there, eat a bowl of ice cream, watch TV. School comes home with them through these devices, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to monitor it to make sure that our children aren't becoming victims, and also that our kids aren't the bystanders that are letting things happen, or worst case scenario, that they're the ones, you know, becoming the bullies.
Right. I mean, it's such a scary world out there. What kind of advice can you give to parents who really aren't that savvy in that digital world. So you can say, well, you can sit down and play the game, but if you're not using computers in your everyday life, something like that's a little bit more problematic for some parents. Is that where that password, having the ability to monitor what they're putting on their phones, is that where that comes in?
That comes into play there, but once again, that's if you're not going in and seeing, you can have the password and log in, but if you don't know which app you're looking at, and my God, I open up my 13-year-old daughter's phone and she has about 6 million, I don't know how she has any room left on her phone, there's about 6 million pages of apps, and she probably uses 5 of them. And just like all of us, we all have tons of apps on our phone, tons of computer programs. You use about 5. That's about the standard. But my kids know. I go in, I look at their camera roll. That's one of those things that parents overlook it. Go into the camera roll. Look at deleted pictures. Look at regular pictures. And believe me, any parent is going to open up the be like, "There's 15,000 photos in here." Yeah, there's 50. They go to the moon. They took, I think, 35 photos. Kids go into the restroom now and they take 16 selfies in a mirror. That's just how the world is right now.
Yeah, that's really great advice. The camera roll really
can be
The camera roll
is very
telling.
important. Messages, and see what messaging apps are out there. That stuff is important. One of the things I think for the parents that just aren't tech savvy or don't really understand it, if you can get online, there's a wonderful website called netsmarts.org, and it's netsmartz.org. That website is run by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It is constantly being updated. And there's parts in there for parents. There's a law enforcement bot for us to get presentations and different things. But there's a parental section, and it actually breaks it down into children under 8, tweens, teens, and once you get into there, how to talk to them about cell phones, how to talk to them about sexting, how to talk to them about gaming online safety, identity fraud. And there's some really good flyers that you can print up in there. It's excellent because it's constantly being updated. And what's really important with it is it talks about not a specific app. It doesn't go in and say, oh, well, when you go into Snapchat, you want to turn on ghost mode. And that's to hide where you are. That could change next week. It goes in there and it talks about how to talk to your kids about social media, how to address the problem. When we learned how to drive cars, we didn't learn how to drive a Chevy or a Ford. We learned how to drive a car. Because we have a Chevy today, but we may have a Ford tomorrow. So you got to learn how the social media aspect is working, how the gaming aspect works, how they're all tied together. And that will help you start to understand it. But it's a fantastic website.
Okay, that is netsmarts with a Z.
Yep.
.org.
Yep.
And then the last is, when you're doing the engagement part with your kids, you're sitting down and you're playing the games. What are some of those tips that you can give them? Like the games specifically for me, I mean, I'm pretty tech savvy, have been for many years, but the whole gaming online thing baffles me.
It's unbelievable. The hand-eye coordination is amazing to me. I grew up with Nintendo, up, down, left, right, A, B. That was it. I was an original gamer.
Sonic the Hedgehog, man.
I was a Super Mario Brothers. And when they came out with the retro, I loved it. And my kids, they can't play it because they're shaking the remote because it does all those things. The new remotes, they're all so interactive. They have no idea how to play the old games. But
these are all online. These games are all online. They're
online.
not contained in the box or in a cartridge anymore.
No, it's all in the cloud.
So what do you look for in those types of games? Are you looking for people that they're connected with?
You're looking for, when you're logging in to play with the kids, what you're doing is, I'm always looking, well, who are we playing with? Who are we, Fortnite, you can get dumped into an island full of people from around the world, that's how the game's played. But you can start to squad up. And now you're connected with friends that you're friends with. That's where I start to ask the question, who's this? Who's that? Who's this? Who's that? And if we don't know them, they're gone. And I'm very proud of my children. They'll have a request list a mile long, and they'll straight up tell me, we don't know who they are, we're not accepting that. They have very small friends lists. Did I just say my kids don't have a lot of friends?
No.
We'll have to edit that out.
They don't have friends that they don't know.
Exactly, as we shouldn't.
Right.
Nobody has 300 friends.
Right.
Nobody. I don't care how popular you are. But the biggest thing with the engagement that I think is very important for parents to understand is when you can start to use this not only as learning it, making sure they're safe, but it also gives you a wonderful tool as a parent to, if you need to start cutting back on things. I'm a big believer that taking something completely away is not the solution, because we go back to that first thing we talked about. Someone's digital life is just as important as their in real life. So to completely take it away, it's going to be like the kid that can't have cookies at home. He's going to go to the neighbor's house and have cookies, and he's going to gorge himself on the cookies. It's monitoring, it's engaging, it's not taking something completely away. Certainly setting up parameters of, you can play for a half hour when you get home, but then it's schoolwork time. And a lot of schoolwork now, it's all online, which has some wonderful tools on it. My kids have Chromebooks from their school. As they're working on a paper, they can message me, call me, and say, hey, can you help me with this paper? You can go on and see live changes. You can help them with their reports. Wonderful things through the internet.
Right.
Gaming is the same way. Some of the things that parents should look out for, red flags, is kids that are starting to hide what they're doing on their devices. If they're spending extra time on the devices that they used to, if they start to withdraw from real life, because having that balancing act, and it is a balancing act of digital life, real life, because you need both. You need both to be healthy in today's society. That's where, if that digital life starts to overcome everything and they start to not communicate, if they pull away from other things, other friends, family members that they used to communicate with and have good relationships with, those are some red flags you have to start looking out for. Okay. If they minimize things on their screens, or if they start locking the phone, if I hate to say it, but if they change the password and don't tell you, you got to have a conversation with them. And you have to remember, we're their parents.
Right.
We're the adults. Our goal is not to be their friends. Our goal is to make sure that when they become adults, they got there safely because of what we did. And we have to remember that. That's the most important thing we have to do for them, is we are their guardians.
Right. And the guardians of digital life and real life.
Exactly, exactly.
That's a great segue to the ending, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The Department of Public Works has a new safety training program. Megan Savage, safety officer, shares with us how the program got started and some of the training that's provided to employees. Safety is of paramount importance here at the town of Barnstable, and we have a safety officer with me today, Megan Savage. Megan, you're starting some trainings, you're continuing trainings. Tell us a little bit about how the safety program got started here in the town of Barnstable.
Well, a few years ago, Dan Santos, the director, and Rob Steen, assistant director, had realized that safety was really lacking within the Department of Public Works, so they fought for a safety officer position to come in to help with that, to help create plans and make sure that the guys have a safe working environment, guys and girls. Make sure they have a safe working environment and somebody who is on top of it and tracking it. So they got me in.
Got you in. Part of what, when we think about safety, we think about, Band-Aids and after the fact, but the safety training really literally is to make them work smarter.
Yeah,
correct?
So we're trying to be proactive so that we don't need the Band-Aids and we don't need the time off. So we've been working together, with all the employees to come up with better safe operating procedures, better way to do things, making sure we have all of the right safety equipment, that they have the right tools to get their job done effectively, efficiently, and safely.
Right. So how does this program dovetail with OSHA?
OSHA, we basically are following OSHA's regulations. OSHA is for the private sector, but the state has enacted, actually it'll be February of 2019, where it is law that all Massachusetts municipalities have to comply with OSHA regulations. So basically we are following OSHA's regs, and we're kind of a little bit ahead of the curve since we started a little bit earlier, creating safety plans, trenching and excavation, hazard communication, all of these plans that are required by OSHA for your employees. So we're we're getting there to be up to par with what OSHA is requiring.
Right. And Barnstable is the largest town here on the Cape out of the 15 towns. So you're actually helping other towns come into compliance as well with some safety trainings?
With the trainings, yes, absolutely. We've opened up to other towns an aerial rescue training, an electrical hazardous awareness training. We'll be holding flagger certification training next week that other towns are accompanying us with. There's going to be a large mower training coming up. So I've been hosting for a few months now to other towns to try to help them, because it's difficult to get off Cape and to send folks. They're usually very far away, Western Mass and stuff. So I've been working a lot with Bay State Roads to get instructors down here that we could open up to other towns.
Right. So just recently there was, and this one is near and dear to my heart as we come into the winter season and we woke up to snow this past week, is the storm damage training. People don't realize when they think that they can't get out on their roads because there's a tree down. There's a whole lot that goes into that. So tell us a little bit about the chainsaw and the storm damage training that happens.
So we've been doing chainsaw training the last couple of years. We started out with the level 1 and 2 basic safety training for techniques. And this storm damage training that we're doing, it's a 2-day course, helps with the different tensions that they have from a storm. It's not typical, you go into a yard and you cut down one tree. When the storm happens and, high winds, there's trees falling in every direction, and it gets very dangerous. If you cut in the wrong area, it could spring back and kill you. So this class shows you how to deal with those different tensions, different techniques that it was interesting to watch, because I never would have thought of some of the simple things that you can do to just keep yourself safe. Some of the simple techniques, and it's been excellent. I've heard nothing but great feedback. We have not only DPW guys, but some of the Marine Environmental Affairs folks have been coming too. So they went to level 1 and 2 last week, and they're joining us for the storm damage this week. So
right.
It's been excellent.
And that goes right along also with this aerial one. When we were talking pre-interview, I hadn't realized it brought back a story that made you laugh from my past, but what happens when somebody gets caught in a bucket truck or in a tree?
So the aerial rescue training was for both bucket and for the climbers. We have a couple of arborists that are climbers that will climb up the tree and fell the tree. So for the bucket piece, they practice self-rescue. If the bucket, was not able to function, if it got hit by another vehicle, something like that, they have emergency lines where you actually rappel out of the bucket. And I got to try it. It was scary and it was awesome. And then the climbing piece, we actually had one of our arborists, Mike White, had gone up, and there was a scenario being that the arborist that was in the tree got hit in the head, was unconscious. He had to climb up, hook up that individual, and then help get him down to safety, in the scenario that EMS couldn't get there in appropriate time. But this gave them the right techniques to be able to do that, to help somebody if there was an emergency, to get them down faster so that, once EMS did get on site, they could start treatment immediately, and we didn't have to wait for a ladder and everything else.
Right, and time can be of an essence when there's an
Yes.
accident like that. So we think about safety training and the tracking of some of these types of trainings. Because it's so new, you don't have any data yet. So what's moving forward? How will that track, and how will you find trends?
So currently I've started to create kind of a database for our folks of what trainings they've had, and we're working together with the different supervisors for what trainings they think each individual needs for the tasks that they perform, so that we can try, for new hires, get them into these trainings right away so that we can avoid any sort of injuries. As far as incident and injury tracking, anytime there's an accident or a near miss, an almost accident, I've been going in and doing investigations and, how did this happen? Why did this happen? What can we do to prevent it from happening again? So we'll be tracking trends to see, is it faulty equipment? Is it, human error? To figure out why these things are happening when there is an injury or an incident, so that we can hopefully prevent it from ever happening again.
Right. What kind of feedback are you getting from employees?
Yeah, it's funny. When I first started, people did not want to wear hard hats. I still get some gripes, but mostly the feedback is very positive. I get a couple of folks that say, I wish we could implant a GPS in you so I know when you're coming, so I know when to put the hard hat on. But other than that, mostly everybody's been pretty good. And they actually, we have a group of folks that are on the safety committee, and we try to meet monthly. It's not always that great. Things are so busy. But you know, I actually have folks that will come to me and say, all right, Meg, this is what we're doing. What can you help me with? You know, or I need different PPE. The homeless camp cleanups we do. You know, just having the puncture-resistant gloves, and you know, for some of them they're very, very nasty, and making sure we have right coveralls, Tyvek suits, and things like that. So they're actually being proactive and coming to me and say, this is the scenario. How can you help me? What can we do to make this better? So honestly, it's been super positive. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be a bigger fight. I'm not going to lie.
But again, as they start to go through some of these trainings, they realize the importance and then start to think on their own,
Yes.
geez, well, I'm going to encounter this type of situation maybe in 2 months or maybe in a half a year because we're doing X.
Right.
And they're already starting to think safety.
Yep. So we're getting there. we
Excellent.
still have a couple of tough nuts to crack, but that's anywhere you go.
Anywhere you go. What do you want folks to know, our citizens, when your crews are out there, how can we help you be safer?
Pay attention in work zones. That's the biggest thing, especially, you know, we talked about the aerial rescue and the bucket trucks. There's been so many injuries from folks that have hit a truck when a worker is in it. You know, so work zones, slow it down and just pay attention, be cognizant, understand that these folks, especially during storms, have been working for hours and hours, sometimes 24, 40 hours nonstop. So give them space and, you know, let them do their job safely so they can get home to their families.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Megan.
Thank you.
Here's a look at the community calendar. There is still time to get your holiday jingle on at the Osterville Village Stroll. Join the festivities Friday, December 7th, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. The holiday festivities in the traditionally decorated village include horse-drawn carriage rides, trolley rides, a visit from Santa, carolers, refreshments, music, and more. Don't forget, Town Council meets tonight, 7 p.m., second floor hearing room, Town Hall. Comments, suggestions, accolades? Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, email us, or send us an old-fashioned note by carrier pigeon. Channel 18 works for you. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.